я являюсь научным руководителем бизнес-школы Сколково и буду в этом сегодня модератором нашей дискуссии. Проблему, которую мы хотели бы обсудить, или задачу, которую хотели бы поставить, связана с одной стороны, с очень быстрой за последние 5 лет, очень быстрой, но для очень узкой группы вузов, трансформацией российских университетов. Они из парадигмы исключительно подготовки кадров, многие пытаются стать исследовательскими, а некоторые даже и разработческими, или R&D организациями, выполняя, как сейчас модно говорить, все 3 миссии университета: разработки, исследования и подготовка передовых людей. С другой стороны, мы все время слышим, что в многочисленных круглых столах между работодателями и вузами, что довольно низкая и крайне неудовлетворительная подготовка людей для высокотехнологического сектора. Вот эти противоречивые суждения, как общие суждения, они мало имеют, так сказать, смысла, потому что есть примеры и в ту, и в другую сторону. Здесь собрались люди, в основном, которые несут за собой позитивный опыт. И тот вопрос, который я хотел бы поставить на нашу дискуссию, я не знаю, как его примут наши участники, он состоит в том, что должно произойти на стороне университетов в управленческом и содержательном смысле.
Вот перевод идет.
Что?
Вот когда...
И две сущности встретить.
Когда так, это перевод, а здесь канал.
Понятно. Why should they meet? We all know that all over the world, the leading centers such as Stanford or Boston agglomeration or Leuven and Eindhoven, the Triangle of Europe, are also based on a very strong university which is necessary for research. On the other hand, our history, or at least over the latest 80 years, directed the universities towards only narrow specialization, the training of future professionals. And only in the latest years, there is a trend to turn them into research and R&D organizations. Our colleagues have have a certain experience, and I would like them to take a critical look of that, so that they would try to think what should universities change and what should be done in order to things to be better, including financially for universities. What should be done for this a positive change to happen? I would like to give the floor to the head of the Yandex company. Her name is Yelena, and I would like her to answer this question. In fact, we have quite a lot of positive experience of cooperation with the universities. I will speak about 2 universities and what we have done. Historically, we started to cooperate with the Physics and Technology University. Why? Because it has a very good base. They have a few chairs, and it was prepared and it provided a good education to its students who could work with the knowledge they have acquired. We have widened our experience, and the best experience was when we had scientists who worked both in the university and for the Yandex company, because they knew they could be more practical, and they have written a lot of research papers which could be applicable in Yandex. And if only 20% of such papers, course papers or other papers could be practically used, it was already good. And in certain years, about 1/3 of such papers could be used. We worked like this, and we worked with the Economics University and the Higher School of Economics, and we became as bold as to build a joint faculty with the High School of Economics, the Computer Science faculty, and it has worked for about 4 years already, so it has also some experience, and we have widened our cooperation. We began to cooperate with students even in their younger years, junior years of university. At first, the Yandex developers, R&D people of Yandex, etc., asked the students to come and to work. And they set real practical tasks for those students, and it was good. And Yandex was not enough, as we realized, because computer scientists are wide. And so we began to add some other network companies. I don't know how it is going to develop as regards master's degrees or their thesis. The faculty is quite young, but nonetheless we see that the practice has been quite positive. And further, together with the High School of Economics, we began to open scientific research labs. So it is all based on the high school, but we add some of our people, and so there are people now there which get half their salary from the school and half from Yandex, and so they understand how things are both in the company, Yandex company, and in the university, and the results are very good. We had a very small lab within Yandex, and we understood that it was a bit too theoretical and not very useful for practice. This is the Yander laboratory, and we gave it over totally to the High School of Economics with all its research, and I think it's quite useful. We can spread such experience to other. We have also a very good, we have now very good relations with 3 universities. So do I understand you correctly that not only part of training of future professionals, but also part of research can be done not only within your company, but also within the university? Well, if the research is not within the core business of Yandex and it could be separated from it, and then it would be okay. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Pavel, the operation director of the Microsoft company, to take part in the discussion. Microsoft has been in the Russian market for 1,000 years. It is as old as the Russian market itself. Alexandra said that it was about 25 years, but well, it is about how long Microsoft has been present in the Russian market. So, Pavel, you have the floor. Yes, Andrei. Thank you. Good afternoon. From Microsoft's point of view, cooperation with universities is multi-sectoral. Microsoft is a global company, so it does not regard any specific university as a partner just for one task. We rather look at the sector of education as a whole. We look at the companies we provide, as we produce the platform for computer technology, so we want to cooperate with the whole education sector in order to develop everything together. So One of the competition strategies is to take away parts of the market from your competition, and another strategy is to enlarge the market as a whole, and it is more productive. And our strategy of cooperation with the education sector is based on this second approach. It has a number of components. I would like to go back to your words, Andrei, to the effect that now is the time when universities are deep in reflection on transformation, on how they are to transform things in order to stand up to new challenges better. And this concerns all areas of activities of any university. It's not just the work of a research center. It is also how to make a university more attractive for young people, how make the teachers to use all their potential, educational potential within the university, how to make the work results relevant for research and for science and for business. So there is no simple mechanism to carry out this transformation. There are no simple answers. Do this and that, and then everything will be okay. No, it's impossible. So we try to support all initiatives, or various initiatives rather, but I can give you a number of examples, but we should understand the context of our work, which is to provide conditions to enlarge the whole IT market, which has been developing for quite quickly over the latest decades, and we believe that it is going to develop as rapidly in future, and higher education will play an important part in it. To make the education sector more effective, we can make a university more effective within this system. Certain research projects can help, and here I will agree with Yelena that in the contemporary market of high technologies, specific companies do not bring out of the contour the key R&D things. How can universities cooperate here? The discussion is still largely theoretical. But we believe that theoretical research can be used practically in future, and so Microsoft cooperates in this spirit with Moscow State University, where a number of projects have already been commercialized by specific cooperation. Pavel, a question to specify what you mean. In the world market, we know that a company sets a very big task which necessitates not just narrow research, but a very large view, a bird's eye view, some fundamental things. And so they cooperate with universities in this field. And when the technology of solution is beginning to be developed, then it is taken within the contour of the company. Does this happen in the Russian market? Do Russian universities do such research here in Russia for Microsoft? If this is a provocative question, you may not answer. No, this is a normal question. Well, this regards not just Microsoft, but any other company. If we want a business to come to a university in order to search for answers, for answers to pressing questions for business, we must believe that there are experts within that university who understand more about those things than people in business. And I believe that this is the way we will walk in future. And very few universities in the world can boast of such specialists in an industry to come to them to ask to help. for help. So we cooperate practically. If there's a team which has a unique specialization or unique expertise, then the potential of cooperation with companies like Microsoft does exist. And after that, and then we can work with them. And we have about 25 such programs within Microsoft. Thank you. If I have understood you correctly, so far there has developed a potential, but there is no large-scale practice of setting such fundamental tasks within Russia. Recently, a conference on IT, on cognitivistics, has been held in a university, and there was a discussion on artificial intelligence. And what has been done, they asked what has been done over the latest 25 years. So business was very optimistic and experts were pessimistic. They said that over the 25 latest years, nothing fundamental has happened. And the business said that we will do more. We will do with our IT means what you cannot do with your means. There was a very heated discussion. The Google company finally set up a lab within this field in order to take a step forward in the field of artificial intelligence. And I think, well, I'm speaking to the two IT companies present here. We have not yet risen to such a level on our soil of our country. Well, the problem here is that in our company, what do we need? We need machine education research. But as for machine education, well, there are very few labs in Russia which can do that. Machine education. Machine learning, and so we find an expert or somebody bright in this field. We try to take him in-house, or at least to make him a half in-house specialist. It's not just we go to a university, set huge tasks to it, and then it will do it. No, it's quite science has not yet been very well developed in Russia. And as regards Yandex, Yandex as the leader of the Russian IT market has a mission to facilitate development of such specialists, their education, and to train them not for corporate R&D centers, but for university centers. And as 10 years ago there was nothing in this field, we developed our own school, we opened it, we found teachers, both in-house specialists and others, and we educated them. There is a school. This school still exists. We are not going to close down it. We need it, and it is very good, and it's very important for this discussion. Our school is not very formal. It is not regulated by the state, so we can change our curriculum every term. So we can sit down and say that the progress has gone as far as that, so let us introduce this course and that course and take away another one. And so we do it without any formality, and we can do it as an experimental platform for learning. And later we can introduce similar courses in universities. We can be faster. Thank you. I can go into more material-heavy industry. Dmitry Alexandrovich, I would like to ask you. On the one hand, you are the CEO of a very large company in the field of metallurgy and machine building. We do both things, and I have been to your plants. You have high-tech, despite your industry being traditional. On the other hand, you are the chairman of the of the supervision council of the Ural State University, and you have a certain conflict of interest here. You see the problem from both sides, from the industry side and from the highest management of a university. Do you believe, I'll ask you in a somewhat harsh manner, do you believe that your university produces such people who are necessary for modern business? Or should this be compensated with a corporate university, as Yandex has said, because industry is developing very quickly? Second, do you believe that a university, as Lena has said, can change its curriculum very quickly, or is something which impedes it? Or can you be even quicker than, for example, Yandex in this field? Thank you, Andrei Evgenievich. I believe that the conflict of interest that you have found inside me is a wholesome one. And I would like to start by saying that, yes, our company, RBK, is one of the main producers of machines. We are present in many regions of the Russian Federation. We are present in several states of the USA. So this regional section and country section is something that we understand, that we see, and we feel the needs of our customers, thanks to whom we are developing from the inside, and we feel our own need for good personnel. So there are two areas of cooperation between the company with universities, training of personnel, and research, technological research. And if we are talking about the Russian Federation and other countries, well, I think it's worth talking about. There is a different understanding of university. In Russia, university is, first of all, an education institution. In the United States, which I have mentioned, a university is, first of all, a research institution which also carries out education functions. There are, of course, examples to the contrary, but this is the general idea. And this exerts a profound influence on the structure of universities, of their budgets. If, for example, the budgets of the best US universities are produced by research and development, the cooperation with corporation, both in fundamental and applied research, and their education activities produce less money. And there is also a lot of money from endowments, which the most famous and the biggest universities have a lot. In our country, looking at the Urals Federal University, whose budget I know very well as the chairman of the Supervision Council, lately we have been trying, for example, within the framework of the 500 program. We are lucky because we are a big university and the state helps the transformation of our activities, both research and education. So every year we increase the percentage of R&D in the budget of our university, and we have reached 20%. Of course, there is a lot of controversy about which is R&D and which is not, but those who have experience in this field understand me. But nonetheless, about 70% of our income is education activities, so it's all vice versa. So as a as a university, we are trying to develop our R&D section in order to be high in the international ratings, to be well assessed by Times or Quest, in order to be in conformity with the international idea of an educational institution. We do not have enough of this component. Perhaps we have lost it in the 90s, or perhaps it has never existed, as in Russia there was a different concept of education. But now we are moving in this direction. We have just set up joint laboratories. We are doing our best in order to increase the number of researchers in our university.
And we put forward us those non-budgetary revenues from the R&D are going up and up, and it will give us the real foundation in order to become a reliable partner for the industry. And here I would like to proceed to answers to your questions. Yes, at the moment, if we speak about education, especially if we speak about engineering education for traditional industries, I think that specialists trained by our Russian academia in the regions and in Moscow, they meet requirements set by the industry. Yes, there are a lot of employers who complain that their students are poorly trained, undereducated, know nothing, but it has always been like that. If you need experts, if you need specialists, you have to understand you really have to invest into them, setting up some core departments, what Microsoft does, what Yandex does, what we are doing, along with a number of universities, when we have some basic or core departments with some targeted programs, targeted curricular, extracurricular courses, and our institute works with a number of labs, and we're uploading some materials on the websites, and they're doing the same for us. This is a kind of a fine-tuning. We should not speak about speak derogatively about Slav beings, but MA students and BA students who are trained in the academia, they are not ready yet for the industry. You have to retrain them, you have to provide advanced training, but that's life. But in the area of scientific and technological cooperation, the situation is totally different. The academia are lagging behind the industry, especially in terms of the commercialization and market approach to their development, because this is what we never had. And now the most advanced institutes and universities are setting up. I would like to praise Mr. Kuzminov as the president of the High School of Economics. And for instance, we got in touch with the Russian Union of Industrialists in order to set up the department in the High School of Economics, and it took only 2 months, and it will actually be cost efficient. They found this model of they are meeting the requirements of the business or the non-profit associations of the business. We don't care where they take money from, provided it is not from the federal budget. And for instance, we're working a lot in RFU. We're setting up some environment in the regions, kind of a chain of mid-size and small enterprises. And the mentality of professors has not changed yet. And actually, any professor would like to be paid $1 million immediately. Otherwise, he will not embark on anything. And the problems which are put forward actually are of no commercial use. And money has already been spent on it. And someone has wasted this money. So we think that the universities have a lot of room for improvement. And then the corporations would provide enough feedback. Big, especially global corporations, actually have to focus on that. I cannot imagine a big corporation without their own in-house R&D. We're doing that. We have our own technological centers in different regions of the country, different regions of the world. And we are not just trying to catch up with, but there are a lot of topics where the universities may add something. Universities and academia now just lack reaction. Thank you so much. You echo what Yelena Bunina has mentioned, that the decision-making rate in academia is different from the decision-making rate in Yandex. And my question goes to Mr. Pavelko. Probably it's an open secret that, as far as we used to work together, and he was one of the founders of 5100 program, and he understands very well the academia problems, and now he is on the other side of the playing field. He's responsible for venture investments, and as far as I know, you have recently distributed this so-called NP grant. I call it this informal way, and probably you have your own viewpoint of what academia may do and what they may not do. I know that this competition, this tender, was far from being easy. There are a lot of discussions. Are our academia investment attractive? And are they different from the requirements which you set in your tenders and competitions? Yes, thank you so much, Eugene. Thank you so much for your question. I see a number of representatives from academia present here. I do not want to offend anyone. I mean no offense, but really the tender, the contest took place, and it took place partially. Out of 10 grants, we allocated 6 nominations, and 2 were won by academic institutions, and 4 actually were won by universities. In essence, we have one common serious problem. Universities do not know how to execute, to shape the problems, how to provide the necessary wording for the problems. We actually initially said that the bid should be offered by the consortium, by holding, but still, even consortiums fail to provide a good wording for the problem, for the task at hand. They just use some general words. We do not see those advanced thinking, just the one which we see in Yandex. The story there is quite interesting in the sense that Yandex, Microsoft, now, Microsoft was not present there, but there was a meeting dedicated to artificial intelligence. Mail.ru was present there, and they are reluctant to outsource the problems which, upon resolution, might be immediately commercialized. And they're not ready to actually think in advance to propose any problems for future, so to say. We see kind of a gap. We have a good impression of what our current tasks, our current problems are, problems for the company, problems for the products, but we are not thinking one step forward. It's very difficult to somehow tell this story, and organizing this bidding, we wanted to make those 2 components meet, 3 components meet. Researchers, universities and companies, in order to find out what the next step would be. We're speaking about machine learning, deep learning, but it's obvious that there will be one more technological step forward, and academia and universities actually could invest into that area. Designing some platform solution. We're making some platform solutions so that they could could offer some off-the-shelf product, not just actually tell us what to do and we'll do it. This is kind of a cost accounting approach. When we push the universities aside from cooperation with the industries, we this way somehow extinguish even the smoke of their enthusiasm. We see a clear gap in the horizon of planning, gap in the readiness or appetite for big tasks. So, in that respect, we fail to make any progress. We fail to embark on some big topics, big problems, to dare address some huge technological problems which would have big commercial potential. This is number one, message number one. Or probably this is the bullet point number two, but problem number one, that's our total carelessness. Very careless approach to selling yourself, selling your potential. That's really a nightmare. Just a disgrace that people fail to submit certain documents and then feel offended that the whole package of documents was not accepted. So what we got as a result, a number of winners and unfortunately a number of those who unfortunately lost, part of those who lost. At least that they learned to build this story of cooperation with consortiums, so they now how to work in a team. We don't know how it will work in future, but at least they now how to agree with partners and to distribute the tasks among the partners. This is something which we can clearly see. In that sense, one of the ideas behind it was that the boundaries between the companies could be erased somehow. We could erase somehow the boundaries between companies and universities. Without that, any cooperation will be unimaginable because business is rather closed. And where universities actually cannot read, cannot recognize their demands, and universities, they just offer the set of nesting dolls which they have. Comment on that. I started thinking what prevents us from giving this long-term objective or long-term problem. It's quite easy to set a long-term objective or long-term problem in general terms, but business, I think, will never invest any money into that because it is too far away. It is for the budget of the next year, or it will take place in 2 years. It's very difficult to carve out money from the current budget. If academia, along with the research centers, could have some money, some budgets, and they would be asking the business to give them a task, give them a problem, then the life would be easier. But right now, I don't think that business will afford such costs. Well, it's up to them. It's up to the business. The whole story about those grants and the scientific and technological research grants actually were allocated among the universities, and universities can cope with that. But then they will have to be replaced following the results of the program. We have to actually reach one parameters. You have to learn how to sell what you have done. But here you see the money, here you see the objectives and problems. All those financial resources are all available. Thank you so much. We have approached the conceptual fork in the road. Rephrasing a little bit what has been said, the business is not ready yet to allocate money from its budget for big problems, big objectives. But on the other hand, we say that in most cases, the universities have no such an experience of setting such objectives or such problems. So this is historically been so. When the Academy of Sciences was split, it took place 100 years ago, actually. we detached science from practice, so we go in such a vicious circle. I apologize for such a comparison. And the whole project 5Y100 was invented in order to get out of this vicious circle. From the standpoint of the research agenda, a number of universities were offered to change their genotype, to change their agenda, and at the same time Humboldt model was offered when the universities do not follow the requests from the industry, but they would put forward some global objectives, some global tasks, and would address them immediately. I would like to offer this idea of fork in the road to Mr. Kuzminov for discussion, not as director of the High School of Economics, but as the head of Global Universities Association. First there were 14 of these universities, then this figure increased to 21. It's quite a small figure compared to 600 major universities in the world. I was looking for some politically correct definition, but actually we speak about more lively universities. So every 12 student studies in such a university which tries to change its paradigm. Mr. Kuzminov, do you think that we don't have to hurry to wait and work for 10 years in a row not putting forward this problem? Or already today we can do something, including changing the institutional conditions, including the regulatory framework in which this university or a group of universities exists. I do think that within the discussion we have crystallized several templates, several models of cooperation between universities and their potential customers. This is the model of ordering, following a competition or not, but when certain order is put forward and the university implements it, some flow of the R&D accounts for about 10% of the university's budget. And it depends on these orders. These are very short-term moments of cooperation, but usually you do not outsource things which would be of some comprehensive development nature. But at the same time, there are two types of such an order. First of all, subcontracting order, when a university would act as the core executor of some topic because they have a lab and people know the top performer, top executor there. This usually happens with the technical people, or it is a model when a university possesses of some technology, in-house technology, and it promotes this technology in the market. In the High School of Economics, we actively use this order-based model in the urban school, in the Goldberg School, which studies the knowledge-based economy. In all the cases, we set up a model, a product which we are selling. Secondly, the second model, that's the model of exclusive partnership. In fact, the model of exclusive partnership is relevant for the defense industry. Bauman Institute, MAI, Moscow Aviation Institute, and a number of other institutes which performed some long-term orders from certain ministries could act as long-term partners. Such a long-term partnership has its own advantages. For instance, low cost, because you know your partner. Probably you are paying a little bit more, probably you can find something cheaper in the market, but you are avoiding a lot of risks. Depending on the economy or industry, the bulk of such orders may be quite rare, but such an exclusive partnership model, I think, has retained with the defense industry and in some small sectors of the economy. This exists when the corporation is still involved in certain industries or sources. I try to actually get back from the skies to the earth, and in that sense I would say that such a long-term partner, usually that's a public agency or a state-owned enterprise which follows the reforms of the Moscow government, this is about long-term partnership. And the essence of this partnership is quite simple. It means that the parties do not count any costs. They just work together. If both of them are satisfied, then they would set an account, settle the account. I think that in Russia, apart from the defense industry, we have no other exclusive partnerships in the technological sector. At least this is what I see. We can discuss that in more detail later on. Next model, model number 3. This is the model touched upon by Yelena Bunina. This is a cooperation to address common sovereign problems or national problems, what actually we some highbrowly call warming the environment or heating the environment when we want to make it better. And there is an industrial dimension of that when we say that there should be the leader in the market, the company spearheading all the efforts, which is not afraid of working along with the competitor, and then several competing companies may join together on some platform in order to address one common problem. And you know that such examples are available at hand when they build some common standards. This model has a huge perspective only, and let me stress it, only when there is a leader, when a leadership is accepted by a certain company. If not, then, for instance, some company would be appointed a leader and would be asked to accept certain risks. What this all is exacerbated by? We have serious limitations, the external ones, in what concerns the university business, meaning that the Russian business is not ready to invest into R&D in general. They would rather adapt for the existing decisions, just as Russia is not present very well within the global R&D landscape. Russia is present with less than 5% stake in the global scientific frontiers, and we're investing dramatically less than the United States, for instance, into R&D. Probably we're too poor for such an approach. So this is not the prospecting, but rather adaptive approach to development. And here we see a trap in the road. If you're involved in adaptation, then you are looking for where it could be done cheaper, where it is already available. Most likely it won't be Russia, and this is a very serious limitation. We have to understand it in order to somehow address it by means of politics. And there is another thing which is usually complained of, that's the short-term decision-making by the business. Business in Russia is not ready to think strategically in the technological sphere or even outside the technology. Can it be overcome? Yes, it can be overcome. It's been done by means of macroeconomics. When efficient lending is offered, when the borrowing costs go down, and when we can focus for ourselves the environment for 3-year horizon and further. I do think that these are the problems which we can address, but the first peculiarity related to the small niche taken by Russia in the global landscape, this cannot be addressed because some countries are making a real progress, and we have to find an answer how can we compensate for such a situation when not only the universities but local engineering companies cannot embark on the adaptation R&D because actually there are platforms elsewhere there it is done much cheaper. Thank you so much, Mr. Kuzminov. Yes, your remark, please. I think that in such a model we may see enough risks, 1 or 2 adaptation approaches, and we will end up with failing to understand what is going on. We cannot predict the future. This is the problem of the state, actually. And this is not the problem of any individual business. I would like to actually start from this notion of a state. For instance, in the Soviet times, remember there was a TV program called If I Were a Director. So if you are not who you are, but you are a minister of some core department, and you find yourself in the fork in the road, and most of you are managers, or you are present in the board of directors, or, for instance, you are working for a regulator, such as deputy ministers. So you are people who are close to academia. You know. Yes, I know that Russian language is very rich in terms of connotations and interpretations. I don't mean that you are simple people, but there is a strategic fork in the road. Actually, so can we leave it as it is? For instance, there are universities which may train good people, or we may actually embark on a structural maneuver in the sphere of education, which will result in a disproportion. Some universities would boost, and they would assume some huge R&D agenda and other things, and we discussed it that such universities start from the budget of $1 billion budget. So the size matters. If we don't see such a size, such a might, then you should not claim the role of a leader. So the leading universities should claim the budget of $2 billion, and we are ruling out any talk about endowment. For instance, the French Polytechnical Institute, with only 10,000 students, they boast the budget of $1.25 billion. And they managed to fare this way for 20 years. So either we set up such universities with certain requirements, and Project 5100 was just about that, but the scale is quite modest. The first stage actually was launched in 2012, and it is designed until 2020, and there are discussions whether the second stage would take place. You have to take a decision where you can remain silent. Yelena, will you start answering this question? I would take 5 best universities. Not the biggest ones, sadly, some biggest ones, but with the most flexible management, the one which could move forward faster than anyone else, and I would give them money enough to make such a boost. I'm not sure whether it is possible. Paul?
Thank you. Have you an opinion? Yes, I would agree with Yelena. But I think that we will have to do a lot to create an environment, an ecosystem around such universities, because innovations are created not so much by corporations, but also sometimes by people from the universities who leave universities, who make a small new company and who develop them themselves, and who perhaps can later become part of a bigger company. Dmitry Alexandrovich, first of all, we perhaps should look at the number of universities in the country. It's no secret there are more than enough now I would say even too many, as the demographics of the country are now. So we should perhaps cut down the number of universities, and this is an issue of state regulation, and we should do something about the system of management of universities. From the inside, we see that even when we are within the 5100 program, we see that there are a lot of formal things which we have to do because of the existing instructions, and we waste a lot of time on that. And of course, we should understand whether we want to set up such a huge task for all universities or not. Perhaps some universities should remain purely educational institutions, let them sink or swim as they can, and we should take a group of leading universities, 5, 10, 20. It's a subject for serious discussion, and such institutions, such universities must turn into corporations. A corporation can talk to a corporation. Until a university becomes a corporation, the system of regulation will be different. Alexander Borisovich, do you agree? Yes, I agree with Dmitry Alexandrovich, but I also agree with Dmitry Anatolievich. We all agree with Dmitry Anatolievich. That's exactly the picture that we at least informally painted when we started, when we launched the program. I think there are as many as 50 universities. Oh, well, so you see 10 times more, as he has seen, as he sees. Well, I think that 5 to 10 universities need support. You cannot just create one good university, and leave the others as they are. It needs a good environment. There needs to be a good environment, an exchange of teachers and students. So this is the quality factor which influences that. It is impossible when we began this program of 5100. They said take 5 universities. Well, it's impossible. It doesn't work like this. This is first, and second, the country does need a bit more than 5 universities. We have more high quality people, high quality young people who would like to enter universities. More than 50 would be perhaps, so we have too many bright people, young people for 5 universities, but 50 universities would be a bit too much. There should be some limits. Resources must be concentrated. So, in my opinion, sooner or later, we will understand how necessary is all that, and we must simply wait till all the hysterics die down. Well, and what about you? Well, I believe there are 2 aspects of this solution. We need, I think, 30 to 40 universities at least, who would be part of the world top 100 within their specialization. Why 30 to 40? Well, in multidisciplinary there are about 60 multidisciplinary ratings. For Russia, based on the logic that we are within the 5 top percent, and we cannot get to more than 10%. That means that within the 90% of rankings, we must understand what is going on, and at least one Russian university should participate in all this environment where such advanced ideas and technologies are created. Do we need here $2 billion? $2 billion, well, if we take 30 to 40 universities and multiply by $2 billion, so this will be about 6 trillion Russian rubles, which is about 5% of the GDP, and nowadays the whole funding of the whole higher education segment is 0.7 GDP. So in order to have a compromise model, a model when we have a core of a certain number of universities who can compete technologically, who have enough equipment, and they can be within the top 25. And there are also universities which have some competitive sectors within themselves who take part in all international ratings, but their limit is being part of the world's top 100. So that is, they are invited, they are known at least. So how much, why are we talk about, we speak about 6 trillion. Well, there's a concept which is called the bias ability parity. So our leading universities have from 300 to 500 million, and as for the bias ability parity, it's over $1 billion. We can, it is not like a food ration. We must work on a market where people could anytime could leave the country. Competitive scientists are often invited by other countries, so we must have modern equipment which costs dollars and not rubles. So the parity will be about 1.6. This is something necessary, but it's very difficult. And unfortunately, people who are in charge of the Russian state budget, as far as I understand, do not understand it. It's a serious problem. Another problem is what should be done to the rest of universities. I believe that we must create an innovative belt around every university, giving over handing over to those leading, to those universities which are alive, all those business incubators and other innovative things. They are not well or efficiently used in Russia. So let's give them to universities so that every 8th or every 9th student of a perspective of a good university would stay within this structure. This will be good in modern Russian conditions, but let us not forget that the advantage of a university is the advantage of youth, and that the constant inflow of young people is as important as inflow of technologies or money. So if we want to to capitalize on the future of our country, we must capitalize on youth, and youth means universities. Thank you, esteemed colleagues. And now we have an opportunity to answer questions from the floor. Here in the room, we have the leaders of 5100 universities, federal universities, all the most important universities, those of which we have been talking here. Thank you. Unfortunately, I have a heavy briefcase, so I cannot stand up. Let me remain sitting. You have no question. Well, I want just to ask whether our colleagues, the biggest universities, the China Open University with 3 million students, New Delhi University with 1.8 million students, so do they remember the model of social open university, which had 600,000 to 700,000 universities, or the modern humanitarian academy, or Natalia Nesterova University, Dear colleagues, you are talking about old models, but we need here a recipe for a technological breakthrough. Mr. Kuzminov, I did not understand your discourse with you remember you said that you wanted to take away the logarithms from school education, and it would have been disastrous if Mr. Orlov did not impede you. And now, when you have bought the best technological school of Russia, you are destroying it. That's my personal opinion. So that was not a question. Do you have any questions, colleagues? An opinion or a question? A question. What should be done? Or what is to be done? Well, people have already suggested logarithms. It's surprising that our colleague who has remembered this funny story about logarithms, he used as an example for imitation, has given us the modern humanitarian academy. How can these two things survive together within our mind? Well, it's an enigma, but it shows how society views universities. Colleagues, good afternoon. It's difficult for me also to stand up. Yes, be seated. I have two questions. Do you think that modern limits, that regulations, instructive letters, and other, or some limits set by some bureaucratic meetings, do you think that this limits the academic freedom of universities, that this prevents universities from fully develop their potential and to go and meet halfway the business to develop their research? Perhaps we should enlarge academic freedoms, and so universities, perhaps not all, but some universities can develop into corporations, just as Mr. Pompiansky said. And my second question, the country has set itself the course of digitalization of the economy. Sometimes the idea of a digital university is discussed. What do you think of this? And how do you think that a digital university can cooperate with IT companies or technological companies? Oh, I keep answering questions alone. Well, I think that the digital university is about the same thing as the first library. Some time ago, the bearded founders of philosophy taught their disciples while walking on a store, talking to them. After that, somebody invented the printing machine, and so it has become quite possible to enlarge the influence of one teacher. This has become a very big growth, sudden growth. And now we have a unique opportunity, that is the open online courses, a unique opportunity to give all students and everybody who wants to become or to feel like a student to give them access to lectures by best professors, no matter where these people physically are. This is a real opportunity to create something serious, not the modern humanitarian academy, but something serious, as a market of opportunity, a market of micro degrees from which you can build final degrees for a person to develop unique specialists. How does it relate to research activities? If we talk about enlightenment, in the enlightenment of universities, such portals agrees. And so this is between this enlightenment approach and the normal university approach. The national platform of open university, which 10 leading universities have created and are using, well, we have a more restrictive approach, and some universities began to replace such courses. They are offline courses, so they have begun to squeeze out poor offline teachers. So this is a good resource. It is not necessarily that an online course will replace an offline professor, but it will exert pressure on him, and students will come with provocative questions to him. Let me react to your first question. This question has already been answered in in so many words. There is a discussion between such universities, federal, national, and 5100 universities. Well, a new regime of regulation is necessary, and I hope that very soon, within less than 1 year, such decisions will be taken. They are already being discussed in the government. The question is here. Yes. Yes, give him the microphone. Just a second. Lena, I believe that here, in your question, well, I come back to this competition, which I want to talk about all the time. There are certain impediments. There are certain to what we are doing. We have problems. We have bad students who come with poor knowledge and no ability to learn, and the system of education has been destroyed, and leading professors of leading universities are saying this. And if our system of education has been destroyed, why this professors is remaining there? He should leave it, and if he is a respectable person, a man of integrity, then he should ask himself, first of all, why students have stopped understanding me. I think that without such a changing of mindset, we should become more grown up myself. It is a childish approach. Everybody is guilty, and only I am guiltless. With such an approach, no amount of money or no amount of new labs would help us. It seems to us that this problem exists, but this problem does not exist. Or rather, if this problem does exist, we do not quite understand why the Association of Global Universities as just a collective organ for universities does not resolutely say that this is unacceptable, that this set of normative documents is unacceptable. We are not going to work with you. It is not just a mono problem. It is a problem of financial and economic activities. The leading universities are discussing that, but they must tell it to the government. Colleagues, yes, we also have some guilt. We are also to blame. So, Valery Falkov from Tyumen State University, I'm the rector of it, and since 2015 we have been participants of the 5-100 project. Two ideas. Andrei, you have said that what universities must change. What I believe which what can be changed and what can be spread, first of all, what we should change is the system of management so that the business could understand and interact with universities. I totally agree with Dmitry Alexandrovich that a university should be regarded as a corporation where the best corporate practices, including in the management sphere, must be applied. Now, a university is an autonomous institution. It has a supervision council, not a comfortable or convenient, not a convenient council, but a good council, always has representatives of business. And this allows us to interact well. Of course, this is not a panacea. It will not change everything, but interested participation of business, of advanced high technology companies changes a university very quickly. The team begins to understand business, to speak its language and to live in its rhythm. And this allows us to achieve our goal better. And the second idea is that it would be impossible to achieve innovations in serious innovation activities without changing the education process. In the majority of education institutions, there is one traditional basic process, which is education. In some universities, there is also some research components. There are some research universities, and there are some research-oriented universities. But if we speak about the 3.0 university, the education process is not very well compatible with research activities and with what business wants from us. I would like to say just one word in connection with what has just been said. In the morning there was a session on raising the efficiency of education, and we had a discussion with Golikova, who actually boiled down to that the economic and financial authorities of the country believe that there are too many institutions and that we should enhance the efficiency of such institutions. So we should take the idea of an autonomous institution as the basis, which has a supervision council. And the presence of business in the supervision council is one of the soft incentives for a university to change. I am not only for the existence of supervision councils. So this is a mirror into which the management of a university should look at. but they should have more powers. Nowadays, of course, if the university is interested, we can cooperate with the council, but according to law, they have some formal powers connected with accountancy and auditing and property, but this of course important, but there should be some more powers given to it. Yes, thank you. Please give the microphone to the third row. The Belgrade University, named after Lobachevsky. Thank you. Can't requite. I'm a former innovation prorector, now a business angel. I would like to ask Dmitry and Yaroslav, for Russia, infrastructure is very important. In Russia, Russians are very good at high technology, but not at commercialization. But incubate is not enough. Some more infrastructure must be created, which assesses the problem of Russia is translational research from the idea to the prototype. Without real application, a business cannot work with universities. And Lobachevsky has been a very good example of central communication technology. Is this a model which can work in Russia? And can it be add a proof of concept center to a classic university? And it will help to enhance the efficiency of such a process or effectiveness of such processes. I believe when we have talked about this innovation belt, it's also legal support, and legal support is exactly assistance in creating patent protection. I believe that here things are broader and sadder. We have a weak patent protection, a weak tradition of patent activities, and it is weakly integrated into the world system. And we have a very big problem with limitation of access to global technological markets. They are very highly divided. They are very much connected with the existing platforms, and the state must take very serious additional efforts so that Russian scientists could overcome this gap. We cannot just let them loose and tell them go to the market, to the world market. I would like to add that the issue of commercialization, as I have said, well, I agree with you that this is our most important task, our first priority. Without that, you cannot turn into real cooperation. If you cannot sell, you have no takings. You have no takings, you cannot exist. A short comment. Yes, Yaroslav Ivanovich has mentioned very well that our patent system is not integrated with the world system, and this is a big barrier. Why is this a big barrier? The stake made at only the Russian market in the field of innovation technology in the modern world is really a losing one, because you can remain strong only if you are strong globally. And from the point of view of discussing various ideas, well, there are different models. The state need not be the most important actor in this field. There is also venture funding when people which have certain ideas go through a sieve of very high selection. Only the best get some real money, and not all of them, but the best of the best become corporations, companies, or become part of larger companies. Well, can you give the microphone to this young lady? Yes, here. And well, the question is as follows: why, in such a complex situation, can modern information technologies help? For example, creation of a single telecommunication education platform for universities, so that not every university create its own platform, but a national single information education platform. And then if we use online courses, good online courses on these platforms, it could be useful. But my question is broader. Is there some new paradigm or in education which would allow to make a breakthrough, including with the help of information technologies? As regards the national platform, it does exist already. It has been created by a consortium of leading universities. It provides access to it is free of charge, and if you want to enter this consortium, it is you have to pay, and here there are very serious requirements for quality. But here, it is not just the platform. A university needs to do huge efforts in order to repack its education content in order to market it. And this takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot, first of all, this takes a lot of intellectual effort. But all leading universities will do that, including by commercialization of their intellectual achievements in the form of courses. But I would like to say that there is no universal platform which would solve everything. We are trying to launch this project.
As a new educational provider, university actually is not a very good word for the newly set up structure. We're speaking about not of a set of degrees, but rather short-term courses for specific requirements with the necessary certification. And so that they could actually get best training from the best providers. Yes, such a platform may be created there, whether it is comprehensive or not. Whether it is going to replace everything, I don't think that it will replace everything, just like online courses have not replaced offline universities. Yes, really, they added something, and they contribute dramatically to the economics of universities, but they cannot replace offline universities. And this is mainly due to the idea of the research institute, a research university, which we will come up with once we understand that this is not just about money, but this is about of the educational process, a mandatory part. Actually, one is an integral part of the other one. My name is Mr. Novikov. I'm rector of Novosibirsk Management and Economics Institute. I have a question about the efficiency. Don't you think that we have to assess the efficiency of investment into this small number of universities? And you said that actually it accounts for 12% of the student body, but we can say that only 12% of students are studied there, are trained there, and they can add something. But most of the universities, they lack any support. And probably it would make sense that actually see what the universities which do not get anything, or where budgetary funding is going down, what their success is. In that sense, actually, we can judge about the efficiency of the investment. Otherwise, it would be just a sham, a scheme, which we have to support, and it may result in some poor ending. Well, this is not a question, but rather a comment now. This is a question about efficiency. Do you account for efficiency? Have you estimated efficiency of investments? How much it costs to achieve this or that indicator or figure? I will allow myself, as a participant of this process, as a member of the board, to react to the idea of those sham or phony structures. Every 6 months, the such universities have to publicly prove that they may be within that system, and it requires the decision by the government of the country. And the universities from the bottom of the list, they do not get a lot of money. But I said that the whole participation, the very participation in this program, makes institutes to rethink their approach towards efficiency. And this is not just my opinion, but opinion of many Western universities. The Russian universities, they develop very well and go forward very well. This is not actually our idea, but the idea shared by many colleagues from abroad too. Yes, there are more questions, I see. Can you pass the mic there? Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, with your permission, I will not stand up because it's rather difficult for me to. My name is Galmadimov. I'm rector of Agricultural Institute of Kazan. I'll have one comment to be followed by a question. We're discussing the interaction between universities and business, how to create competitive universities, and it's obvious that competitiveness can be of only one dimension of the world. And we should not focus only on the national scale, and therefore this problem is quite obvious. We find ourselves in not equal positions because there is a lot of red tape, overly bureaucratized. And probably if we get rid of this red tape, we can address this problem, because the business processes are extremely stitchy, and our colleagues, they just move forward, and we have to go through like a bitumen. Yelena told us about the case of cooperation with the Moscow Physics Institute and Technological Institutes. But my question is like that. Setting up such structures, how do you manage to agree with the state standards 3.0, 3++, etc., etc.? Because if actually a student is enrolled, the standard at time was 3.0, but now actually it was replaced with 3++, etc., etc. And because if the student does not comply with those standards, he will not be given any certificate. But we are cooperating that with the local administration. We decide that along with the administration of the institute. Actually, our curriculum is not worse than the one which you may find anywhere. And you are entitled by the law to have such a format of work, format of cooperation. But it turned out that in order to be competitive, you have to raise the rates, the fee for these programs. Not always we can do that. Dear colleagues, you know, several colleagues from among the rectors raised a very important question about the main core of our institutes. Russia is a big country, and it cannot survive with their 10 institutes or 30 institutes or whatever. There should be, I think, a couple of hundreds of institutes to support our development. And in that respect, I do believe that we have to discuss it tomorrow, but I can tell you immediately, probably you have read about the budget maneuver in the newspapers. One of the elements of this maneuver is to increase funding for the education. And first of all, it would be about spending more on the education, matching the budgets of the average world institutes, because otherwise the universities actually find themselves underfunded in the context of tougher international competition. Secondly, we suggest that we core fund fundamental research, which would mandatorily involve the resources of the regional universities following the model: one academic institute followed by 3 regional universities, and they would have a 100 million strong grant. And sadly, the basic institute cannot report for that. Why this is done actually? There are no universities without science, and this goes without saying. Teaching university, it's an insult to the institute. Actually, university is glorified by always denouncing something or confirming something, and so some R&D work should be done mandatory. The second source for growth of our universities, this is about online courses. Online courses may actually replace those weak professors who cannot do any research on their own. And secondly, for instance, we are discussing that with the Ministry of Education, that some funding would disappear. But the university which saved up money on something should be capable of allocating this money to their own research in their own labs. People should have a feeling that they are in the premises of the university, that live in the university. I understand clearly what you're speaking about. But clearly, I have no pity for the fact that we failed to do that. Actually, I suggested a single exam and GIFO. GIFO, this is actually an fair competition when the student will get grants along with you, and not that Bauman Institute or some other institute actually are ahead of you or stronger than you, but actually this is because certain students brought you more grants than other institutes. And when Mr. Filipov left the ministry, this model was neglected, totally neglected. I don't think that this is the right approach. There should be transparent, very strong competition. We have to compete for strong students, and every university, wherever it is and whatever it is called, it should follow the same rules of the game. And now we have to invent the models in order somehow to fight this injustice. I got the mic, thank you so much. And Mr. Kuzminov answered this question partially. I'm from Chita, from Zabaikali Institute. What do we do to regional institutes who have to compete for students? All the cum laude students, they go to Moscow or St. Pete, and some of them go to Novosibirsk. But if we don't have any good students in our regional institutes, then there is no competition actually. The rich will become richer and the poor will become poorer. The students will not come back. Actually, they are opting not for the knowledge, but they are opting for the living conditions. For instance, in the Far East, we have a lot of very strong institutes, very strong students. Those who left Siberia for Moscow, none of them will come back. What do we do? Every year we lose about 7% of the population. Every year. If funding goes following that principle, then we cannot do anything about that. If we don't have any big business in the region, any big enterprise in the region, then the institutes should be divided in two parts. So some will deal only with education and participate in some professors' grants, or we have to allocate money. I understand that actually we are running out of money, but top 100 R&D institutes, at least they have an opportunity to buy equipment and participate in the research. Or we close all the strong regional institutes, and I'm from Zabaikalia Regional Institute. We are the only institute there in that region. And what do? We're speaking about the development of education, and still I understand that money would not be enough for everyone. You know, what you say actually goes beyond education. You say you're a strong institute, and I totally agree with you. I do not know your institute, but I know a number of very strong institutes in the Far East. You can see the average score published by the High School of Economics, not because you are bad, but because people are leaving the region. This is not the problem of the system of education. This is a problem of insufficiency of the public policy to develop the Far East. Because people are still going to leave, however you support it. So it means that the measures, actually money and 1 hectare of land allocated to everyone who wants in the Far East, these things are not enough. And we have to care about those frontiers. Colleagues, unfortunately, I have to finish our discussion. It was dedicated to high-tech and universities, although we still embarked on a broader agenda. So this conversation will be continued tomorrow, but our discussion shows that without structural maneuver, with all the criticism, actually we cannot do, and the program 110 provides for this equal access towards money. We need more regulation. We need more clear-cut rules. We have to replace management, or the system of management, and we have to implement this financial maneuver or budgetary maneuver. Otherwise, we'll not make any breakthrough, but the events of the last 5 years and the next election cycle will open up such opportunities. Thank you so much for your participation and for your discussion. Thank you.